Hello again, everyone. You're joining us for another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint podcast series. My name is Jeff Mix. I'm head of content and research. My guest today is Matt Delaney of Covalent. We're going to be having a conversation about workforce development, but especially how AI is sort of empowering people to do new and exciting things. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Matt, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Maybe I'll start off by saying I don't think it's going to surprise you. I host a business podcast. I've had a lot of conversations about AI over the last year and a half. I don't think I've had one about how it's changing workforce development, and I'm actually really excited to hear it because I think there's a lot of ground that it could cover. Mm-hmm. What is happening with AI in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of focus, particularly around content generation when it comes to AI. I would say for us, especially in the manufacturing world, there's some very particular use cases about how we're able to leverage a lot of the data that our system has, as well as a lot of the existing data that our customers already have in their production systems, and marry it up intelligently in order to make recommendations to frontline leaders and supervisors and production schedulers to help them make more informed decisions at the end of the day, and help generate recommendations. So happy to unpack that some more, but that's at a high level.
You're anticipating me. I can imagine this being very useful for learning new tasks that fit a customer better, or maybe upskilling and training people who want step-by-step instruction of things. Like, how are manufacturers using this tool?
Yep. It's kind of all the above, but to be more tactical about it, it's there are ways in which we can help an individual learn a set of tasks and help them better understand what good looks like and what the glide path looks like in order for them to ramp efficiently and kind of get up the learning curve faster, so that they can not only work without supervision, but also be able to get up more of like the career ladder faster, right? Mm-hmm. And have visibility into that, and be served recommendations on how to go about that. But then also, if you're the employer, the manufacturer in our case, and you're just trying to be more competitive, to be honest with you, a lot of it is about, hey, how do we efficiently and intelligently make sure that the right people are working on the right jobs at the right time in order to maximize high quality output. Mm-hmm. But also do that in an intelligent way where you are taking into account ergonomics, as an example, or keeping in mind who is on certain training plans or who needs more exposure to certain types of technologies. So there's just an enormous number of potential data inputs that some of these really advanced machine learning algorithms and AI applications can do behind the scenes, and then serve up much more consumable recommendations and insights for people to take action on at the end of the day.
I'd love to maybe walk through a hypothetical. So let's imagine I'm a plant manager, and there is turnover in manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Of course there is, and we've got new people coming in. Maybe some of my old hands are coming up on retirement, mm-hmm. and someone says to me, have you considered using AI to sort of smooth things out? We've got some knowledge retention over mm-hmm. here. We've got some training over there. This is a really exciting new tool. And maybe I feel a little overwhelmed. Maybe I don't know where to get started. Is this going to be complicated? Do I need IT to hold my hand through this? What is the experience of a plant manager who's trying to bring this new tool into his toolbox?
Yep. Great question. And I think that I almost might reframe it a little bit, just in that AI oftentimes is not just like a net new tool, but is a mechanism to accomplish things that you're already doing. Mm-hmm. So we oftentimes look at, hey, what are a lot of the existing processes like? Perfect example is there's something called a job assignment board, which at the start of a shift, if I'm a supervisor, I will look at what are the jobs that are expected of my team to accomplish that day in order to hit my production target. And then I also basically need to know who on my team is showing up for work, who's good at what, who's done what recently, and I kind of go through this matchmaking exercise to figure out who should work on what when that shift. With the help of machine learning based algorithms and AI, we can basically automate that whole process and recommend something that takes into account all the factors that they normally do in their head, right? Or might be super subjective. So it can not only give them time back, but it can serve up recommendations so that they can get the most product out the door in the highest quality.
I can see that being an enormous productivity tool, because you've just said sort of the middle manager doesn't have to remember the last 5 shifts and keep track of, when everyone clocked in and, who's got their electrician's ticket or whatever. It's very much a case of, okay, here's the start of my shift and AI is making these recommendations and I can sense check it.
Yep.
And didn't I just save 45 minutes out of the start of my shift to do something else?
And a lot of these manufacturing environments are very fluid, to be honest with you, just in the sense where supervisors are getting moved around, workers are getting moved around. There's a lot of temps. The supervisors may not know everyone's name. They may not know what everyone has done in the past. The more and more environments are using partial shifts or using, it's just a very fluid labor environment.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to navigate all that, not only at the start of the shift, but even like over the course of the shift, machines break down, there's material shortages, you can just kind of constantly rerun, hey, who should be working on what, so that it takes that workload off the supervisor.
I would even, as you say, reframe it and say there are companies that may feel they're locked into, well, this is the way we do it, but wouldn't it be great if we offered employees flexibility, if we had the ability to give people more access to different shifts, and this tool will make that an easier transition for them?
I think a lot of times a company's ability to adopt the new technologies is the administrative burden of trying to maintain all the implications, right? And I think AI is maybe just, and AI is such a broad term, right? But there's certain tools that can lower that administrative bar or barrier, so that it might be able to be done a little bit more efficiently.
Who needs to be involved when you get started on something like this?
The most successful engagements that we've seen is where manufacturing leadership, quality leadership, and the people leaders, HR, are on the same page and working collaboratively, cross-functionally in order to ultimately help improve not only the employee engagement and retention, but also the high-quality output part of the equation, right? So it actually ends up being a pretty interesting collaborative, cross-functional initiative.
What makes Covalent a leader in this space?
I think our roots as a research team, actually, at Harvard, that was trying to acknowledge the fact that a lot of these manufacturers were taking on more responsibility for doing technical training at the shop level in-house, and trying to help them solve that problem. Ultimately gives us, we look at things through the lens of as a researcher. Like we're basically trying to understand like how our customers and manufacturers are ultimately trying to tackle a lot of these problems. So we have a very collaborative nature with a lot of our customers, and we have always approached it actually originally as a training management system. So our roots are, hey, how do you help a company run more structured on-the-job training? And our core system is a system of record for who knows how to do what. And everything that we just talked about is honestly the direction of where our employers have pulled us. So it's less about like what we're trying to push on the market, and it's more about where the market's pulling us, and that has served us well.
As I'm hearing, where you began and where you are today, the bit that I'm imagining is that this is a very usable, friendly experience. I don't think anyone is asking, please invent another piece of software to complicate my life. This is something they want to use and are happy to engage with. Can you walk through maybe the usability experience?
Yeah, I would say we oftentimes are not reinventing process. We're oftentimes just trying to digitally recreate a lot of the processes that are already working for them, or helping enable processes that they want to drive forward. So we oftentimes are not changing their process, which can be very well received, I'll say, or is better received. And I think having a tool that can do something versus doing it well is honestly there's a big gap there, and we focus a lot on getting feedback from the folks on the floor in order to help improve the product at the end of the day.
So, and I appreciate everyone's experience is going to be a little different. What are sort of the timelines of getting something like this up and running? If I'm a manufacturing executive and I like what I hear, and you're just mentioning, it's not even really changing the process, it's doing the process through this tool that is going to free you. It all sounds great. How long is this going to take?
Yeah, I would say different companies are definitely at different points in their journey of defining and standardizing all their processes. So I won't say that we can only digitize the processes that exist, right? To be totally fair. But at the same time, and different sites are different digital maturities and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I would say that we need to be a part of their ecosystem, like their IT ecosystem, right? Like we need to play well with others in terms of like HR data, working with their manufacturing system. So the first step is oftentimes actually doing some integrations. And then, which might take a quarter, let's call it, and then we can get a site up and running. Again, it can depend, but I'll say a quarter, rough and tough, in order to get them actually started. But even before we get there, we oftentimes run very quick proof of concepts where we can basically take all their existing documentation or data or reports or whatever it is that they would want to see created in our system, and we can do that in a matter of weeks.
I know we've covered a lot of information fairly quickly here. Are there some things that you would want to highlight as the key takeaways that people can think about further when they're saying maybe now is the time to get AI involved in what I'm doing?
Yeah, I would say that first and foremost, AI is a piece of technology, and there's no silver bullet, right? Like technology is a piece of the puzzle, and oftentimes the hard part is mapping out requirements, aligning with the different functions, and just navigating your own organization. And I would say we, fortunately, working with a number of large businesses in particular, have a lot of experience helping facilitate that part of the process. And we actually think that's like part of our offering, right? It's not just the technology, but it's like, hey, how do you help an organization figure out like what is the best fit, and how do you help them evaluate us, right? So that would actually be number one. And then number two is the fact that a lot of these AI tools, a lot of the value is in being able to marry up a lot of the data. And you want to be able to have some very open, collaborative conversations about what data exists, how things would actually match up. That's actually where the rubber like really meets the road. And similarly, those are the types of conversations that like we can bring resources to bear in order to figure out, to actually run that to ground, right? And figure out whether there is a there in the near term.
So for people who have been listening to this, I imagine they have questions of their own that I'm not going to be able to put to you because I'm not in their position. For those people who want to learn more, ask a few questions, what is the best way to get in touch?
People are welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn at Matt Delaney, or our website is best, covalent.works.
I always think it's so generous when people say you can contact me on LinkedIn. I get to have a conversation with you, and I hope some of our listeners have some great questions for you. In the meantime, I want to say how much I appreciate your time. I think this has been great, and I think you're doing exciting work, and I look forward to the next update.
Thank you, Jeff.
You've been listening to another episode of Executive Platform's Blueprint Podcast Series. I've been Jeff Mix. Let's do it again soon.